She grabbed a stranger's hand to avoid her ex-husband, not knowing he was a millionaire CEO. The moment Rachel saw her ex-husband across that crowded charity gala, her blood turned to ice. In pure desperation, she grabbed the hand of a stranger sitting at the bar, a quiet man in an expensive suit who looked like he could protect her. What she didn't know was that David Sterling was one of the wealthiest CEOs in the city, and that her impulsive grab for safety would become the beginning of a love story that would heal them both. This is the story of how running from her past led her straight into the arms of her future. Before we dive into this emotional journey, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments below, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our heartwarming love stories. Rachel's hands trembled as she clutched her champagne glass, the bubbles doing nothing to calm her nerves. She shouldn't have come to this charity gala. Her boss had insisted, said it would be good networking for the small interior design firm. But now, across the glittering ballroom of the Grandview Hotel, she saw him. James, her ex-husband. The man who'd made her life hell for 3 years. He hadn't seen her yet, but he was scanning the crowd with that predatory look she knew too well. Rachel's heart hammered against her ribs. The divorce had been final for 8 months, but the restraining order had expired, and James had been calling again, leaving messages, showing up places he shouldn't know about. She needed to leave. Now. But James stood between her and the exit, still searching. Rachel backed toward the bar, her black cocktail dress suddenly feeling too conspicuous, too visible. Her hands shook harder. "Breathe," she whispered to herself. "Just breathe. Are you all right?" The voice was deep, concerned. Rachel turned to find a man sitting alone at the bar, his dark eyes studying her with genuine worry. He was handsome in an understated way, strong jaw, salt and pepper hair, expensive suit that he wore like it was casual Friday. Rachel glanced back at James, who was now moving through the crowd. Closer. Her panic spiked. Without thinking, without planning, Rachel grabbed the stranger's hand. "Please," she whispered urgently. "Please just pretend you know me. Just for a minute. Please." The man's eyes flickered with surprise, then understanding. His hand turned, fingers interlacing with hers naturally, protectively. "There you are, sweetheart," he said smoothly, loud enough to carry. "I was wondering where you'd wandered off to." Relief flooded through Rachel as the stranger stood, keeping her hand in his. He was tall, solid, his presence immediately comforting. "I'm sorry," she breathed. "My ex-husband is here, and I—" "Which one?" the man asked quietly, his body shifting subtly to shield her. "Blue suit, blonde hair, heading this way." The stranger, she didn't even know his name, glanced over her shoulder. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture did. A quiet authority settled over him. "I've got you," he said simply. "You're safe." And somehow, inexplicably, Rachel believed him. Rachel. James's voice cut through her moment of safety like a blade. What a surprise. She turned, the stranger's hand still firmly holding hers. James stood there with that fake smile that used to fool everyone. Handsome, charming James, who'd been so good at playing the perfect husband in public. "James," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. His eyes flicked to her companion, then to their joined hands. "And who's this?" "David Sterling," the stranger said, extending his free hand with the confidence of someone used to being obeyed. "Rachel's boyfriend." James's handshake was aggressive, trying to establish dominance. David didn't even blink. "Boyfriend," James repeated, his smile tightening. "How quick. We've only been divorced 8 months. Sometimes when you meet the right person, you just know," David said easily. "Isn't that right, darling?" He squeezed Rachel's hand gently, grounding her. She found her voice. "Yes," she said, lifting her chin. "Sometimes you just know." James's jaw clenched, a tell she recognized. He was angry. But with David beside her, tall and immovable, James couldn't do what he usually did. Couldn't grab her arm, couldn't lean in too close, couldn't whisper threats disguised as conversation. "Well," James said after a tense moment, "how nice." Rachel, we should catch up sometime. I've been trying to call. I don't think that's a good idea, David interrupted smoothly. Rachel's been quite clear about wanting to move forward, not backward. I wasn't talking to you, James snapped, the mask slipping. No, David agreed, his voice still pleasant but with steel underneath. You were attempting to intimidate my girlfriend at a charity event, which ends now. The two men stared at each other. David was taller, broader, and there was something in his quiet confidence that made James take a step back. This isn't over, Rachel, James said, his voice low. You know we have unfinished business. The only thing unfinished is your inability to accept that she's moved on, David said. I suggest you do the same. Now. For a moment, Rachel thought James might make a scene, but then he noticed people starting to look their way, and James always cared about appearances. Enjoy your evening, he said with false courtesy, then walked away. Rachel's knees nearly buckled with relief. David's arm came around her waist, steady and sure. Let's get some air, he suggested quietly. He guided her to a balcony overlooking the city lights. The cool Seattle air hit her face, and Rachel finally felt like she could breathe. I'm sorry, she said immediately. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have grabbed you like that. I just panicked and... Hey, David said gently. You have nothing to apologize for. Are you okay? Rachel laughed shakily. I just used a complete stranger as a human shield against my ex-husband. I'm not sure okay is the word. We're not complete strangers, David said with a small smile. I'm David, you're Rachel. We're dating, apparently. I should probably know, how do you take your coffee? Despite everything, Rachel found herself almost smiling. That's what you want to know? Coffee preferences? Well, if I'm going to be a convincing boyfriend, I should know the basics, David said reasonably. Coffee seems like a good start. Vanilla latte, Rachel said. Extra shot. I need the caffeine to deal with difficult clients. Interior designer, right? I heard you talking to someone earlier about a project. He'd noticed her before the incident. The thought was oddly comforting. Yes, she confirmed. And you? What does David Sterling do when he's not rescuing panicked women at charity galas? Oh, this and that, he said vaguely. Mostly boring business stuff. Tell me about James. The subject change was gentle but direct. Rachel wrapped her arms around herself. Ex-husband, she said simply. Divorced 8 months ago. He doesn't accept that it's over. Is he dangerous? The question was calm, matter of fact. Not dramatic or overprotective, just seeking information. Rachel struggled with how to answer. He's never hit me, if that's what you mean. James is more controlling, manipulative. He likes to own things, and he considered me one of his possessions. David's expression darkened slightly. And the restraining order? Rachel looked at him sharply. How did you... The way you reacted when you saw him. The way he approached despite your obvious discomfort. The way he mentioned unfinished business. I've seen it before. The restraining order expired last month, Rachel admitted. I hoped he'd moved on. But he's been calling, showing up places. Tonight was supposed to be safe, a work event at a hotel full of people. Abusers don't respect boundaries, David said quietly. Only consequences. Something in his tone made Rachel look at him more closely. There was understanding in his eyes, the kind that came from experience. Thank you, she said, for playing along, for making him leave. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, David said simply. No one should feel hunted at a charity event or anywhere else. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the city lights twinkling below. Rachel realized she was still holding his hand. She should let go. This stranger had done enough, but his hand was warm, steady, and for the first time in months, she felt safe. I should go, she said reluctantly, before James decides to come back. I'll drive you, David offered immediately. Oh, you don't have to. My car's already here and you're shaking, he pointed out gently. Let me at least see you safely to your car. Rachel realized he was right. She was shaking, The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her feeling vulnerable and exposed. "Okay," she agreed. "Thank you." David texted someone, a driver, she assumed, and within minutes, a sleek black town car pulled up to the hotel's entrance. "This is your car?" Rachel asked, taking in the luxury vehicle. "Company car," David said with a shrug, "one of the perks of boring business stuff." As they settled into the leather seats, Rachel gave the driver her address. She lived in a modest apartment in Queen Anne, nothing fancy but safe and hers. "So," David said as they drove through the Seattle streets, "tell me about your work. What kind of design do you do?" Rachel recognized the gentle distraction and appreciated it. "Mostly residential, some small commercial projects. I love taking a space and finding its potential, making it reflect who the client really is, not just what they think they should want." "That sounds like it requires really understanding people," David observed. "It does," Rachel agreed, "though apparently I'm better at reading clients than husbands." She hadn't meant to say that. The bitterness in her voice surprised her. "Hey," David said softly, "whatever happened in your marriage, it wasn't your fault. Men like James are very good at hiding who they really are until they think they own you." "Voice of experience?" Rachel asked. "My sister," David said after a pause. "She married a man like James. Charming, successful, everyone loved him, until the ring was on her finger and he didn't have to pretend anymore." "Is she okay now?" "She is," David assured her. "Took 2 years and a lot of lawyers, but she's free. Remarried last year to a man who treats her like a queen. Has a baby on the way." "That gives me hope," Rachel said quietly. The car pulled up to her building, a converted Victorian with character and good locks. David got out first, offering his hand to help her out. "Thank you," Rachel said, meaning it. "For everything tonight." "I don't know what would have happened if—" "You would have handled it," David said firmly. "You're stronger than you think. I just provided a convenient excuse." Rachel looked up at him in the streetlight. He really was handsome in a quiet, solid way. The kind of man who would age well, who probably looked better at 40-something than he had at 20. "Could I—" she started, then stopped. What was she doing? She'd just used this man as a shield against her ex-husband. She had no business asking for anything more. "Yes," David prompted gently. "Could I buy you coffee sometime?" Rachel rushed out. "To say thank you properly. I promise not to grab your hand and claim you're my boyfriend." David smiled, and it transformed his face. "I'd like that, but only if you let me buy. After all, I should probably know more about my girlfriend than her coffee order." Rachel laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in weeks. "You don't have to keep up the pretense." "Who says I want to?" David pulled out his phone. "What's your number? I'll text you, and we can find a time that works." If you're enjoying this story of unexpected love, don't forget to hit that like button. Have you ever found love when you least expected it? Share your story in the comments below. Rachel gave him her number, watching as he saved it carefully. "I'll text you tomorrow," he promised. "Get inside safely, okay? And Rachel, if James bothers you again, call me day or night." "You barely know me," Rachel protested. "I know enough," David said simply. "Good night, Rachel." She watched his town car disappear into the night, then went inside, triple-checking her locks out of habit. Her phone buzzed almost immediately. "This is David, just so you have my number too. Sleep well." Rachel stared at the message, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. For the first time in months, maybe she would sleep well. The next morning, Rachel woke to another text from David. "Good morning. How do you feel about coffee this afternoon? There's a great place on Pine Street." She should say no. She was too damaged, too recently divorced, too much of a mess to inflict on anyone. But her fingers typed yes before her brain could stop them. They met at a cozy cafe with exposed brick and the smell of freshly roasted beans. David was already there when she arrived, standing as she approached, old-fashioned manners that made her stomach flutter. "You came," he said, seeming genuinely pleased. "You sound surprised," Rachel said, settling into her chair. "A little," David admitted. "I thought you might reconsider in the light of day. Grabbing a stranger's hand is one thing. Actually, having coffee with him is another. Well, you're not exactly a stranger anymore, Rachel pointed out. You're my boyfriend, remember? David grinned. Right. I should probably know your last name then. Mitchell, Rachel supplied. Rachel Mitchell. And you're David Sterling of the boring business stuff. That's me, he agreed. So, Rachel Mitchell, tell me something that has nothing to do with ex-husbands or charity galas. Like what? Like, what's your favorite movie? Rachel found herself relaxing. You'll laugh. Try me. The Princess Bride, she admitted. I know it's cheesy, but... As you wish, David quoted immediately, making her laugh. You know it? Know it? I can quote the entire thing. Hello? My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die, Rachel finished, grinning. They talked for 2 hours, about movies, books, travel, food, safe topics that slowly revealed more, David's dry humor, Rachel's passion for her work, shared loves of hiking and terrible reality TV. I should warn you, David said as their third round of coffee arrived, I'm not good at casual. What do you mean? I mean, he said carefully, I like you, Rachel. I'd like to see you again. But I understand if you're not ready for that. Your divorce is recent and James... Is my past, Rachel interrupted, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. I spent 3 years letting him control my life. I won't let him control my future too. That's very brave, David said softly. Or very stupid, Rachel countered. I barely know you. For all I know, you could be another James. You're right, David agreed. You don't know me, so let's fix that. Ask me anything. Anything? Anything. Rachel studied him. Why were you alone at the gala last night? David's expression shifted slightly. My +1 cancelled last minute. Work emergency. Girlfriend? Business associate, David corrected. I don't have a girlfriend, haven't for a while. Why not? You're handsome, obviously successful, have good taste in movies. David smiled sadly. My wife died 4 years ago. Cancer. After that, dating seemed impossible. Until last night. Rachel's heart clenched. David, I'm so sorry. Thank you, he said simply. Lisa was extraordinary. We had 12 good years together, but she made me promise not to stop living when she was gone. I've been trying to honor that with varying degrees of success. And last night? Last night a beautiful woman grabbed my hand, and for the first time in 4 years I felt useful, needed, alive. He met her eyes. I should probably thank James for that, but I'd rather just take you to dinner instead. Rachel felt tears prick her eyes. This man, this kind, grieving man, had saved her last night while carrying his own pain. Dinner sounds nice, she said softly. Yeah? Yeah. But David, we should take things slow. I'm still figuring out who I am outside of being James's wife. I need time. We have all the time in the world, David assured her. I'm not going anywhere. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a gentle rhythm. Coffee twice a week, then lunch, then dinner. David never pushed, never assumed. He texted good morning and good night, little anchors in her day that made her smile. Rachel learned things about him in pieces. He ran a tech company, Sterling Solutions, that developed software for non-profits. He lived in a waterfront condo but spent most weekends hiking. He couldn't cook but made excellent coffee. He still wore his wedding ring on a chain around his neck. Does it bother you? He asked one evening over Thai food, catching her looking at it. No, Rachel said honestly. It's part of who you are. She was part of who you are. You're very understanding. You were very understanding about my grab and run at the gala, Rachel countered. We all have our baggage. Speaking of which, David said carefully, has James bothered you lately? Rachel's good mood dimmed. A few calls, some texts. I blocked his number, but he keeps getting new ones. Have you considered another restraining order? With what proof? Mean texts aren't enough. He's careful now. Nothing explicitly threatening, just persistent. David's jaw tightened. If you need a lawyer, I can handle it, Rachel said quickly. Too quickly. David studied her. I know you can, but you don't have to handle it alone. That was the thing about David, Rachel was learning. He never tried to take over, never went into full protective mode like James used to before it turned controlling. He just offered support, presence, choice. 3 weeks into their careful courtship, Rachel invited him to see her work. She was nervous. Her small office was nothing compared to what he was probably used to. This is incredible, David said, studying her design boards. You did all these? It's not much. Rachel, he turned to her, stop diminishing your talent. These are brilliant. This use of space, the way you've captured each client's personality. You're an artist. I'm a decorator, Rachel corrected. You're an artist, David insisted. Own it. That was another thing about David. He saw her, not as James's ex-wife, not as a damaged woman, but as herself. It was terrifying and wonderful. They were leaving her office when it happened. James was waiting by her car, leaning against it with practiced casualness. Rachel, he said, straightening, we need to talk. Rachel froze. David stepped slightly forward, not blocking her but making his presence known. We have nothing to talk about, Rachel managed. We were married for 3 years, James said, his voice taking on that reasonable tone that used to make her doubt herself. You can't just erase that. I've been patient, Rachel, but... Patient? Rachel's voice rose. You've been stalking me. Stalking? James laughed. Don't be dramatic. I'm trying to have a conversation with my wife. Ex-wife, David said quietly. James's eyes flashed. Right. The new boyfriend. Tell me, Sterling, does she still have those nightmares? Still flinch when you move too fast? Rachel felt the blood drain from her face. How dare he? The only nightmare she has is you, David said, his voice still calm but with an edge now. And you're going to leave, now. Or what? James stepped closer. You'll call security? File a report? I'm just talking to her. Actually, David pulled out his phone. I'm recording this interaction, as I've been recording all your attempts to contact Rachel despite her clear wishes. My legal team will be in touch about a harassment suit. James's face went red. You can't. I can. I am. And if you come near her again, I'll make it my personal mission to ensure everyone in Seattle knows exactly what kind of man you are. David's voice never rose, but the threat was clear. Your reputation matters to you, doesn't it, James? Your image? Imagine what your clients would think if they knew how you treat women. You're bluffing. Try me. The two men stared at each other. Rachel watched James realize David wasn't bluffing, that he had the resources and the will to follow through. This isn't over, James said finally, but he was backing away. Yes, it is, David said firmly. Goodbye, James. They watched him drive away. Rachel was shaking again, anger and fear and relief all mixed together. Hey, David said gently. You okay? You recorded him. Every interaction since you told me he was harassing you, David confirmed. I wanted evidence in case of this. You've been protecting me, Rachel said wonderingly. You've been protecting yourself, David corrected. I just provided backup. Come on, let me drive you home. You can get your car tomorrow. In his car, she'd learned he usually drove himself. The town car was for events. Rachel finally asked, How did you know? About recording him? About threatening his reputation? My sister's ex was the same way, David said. Image was everything. The threat of exposure was more effective than any restraining order. Is that why you were so calm? You've dealt with this before. Partly, David admitted, and partly because losing my temper would have escalated things. Men like James want a reaction. They want drama they can point to later. Rachel studied his profile as he drove. You're not what I expected, David Sterling. What did you expect? I don't know. After James, I thought all successful men were controlling, domineering, but you're not. Power isn't about control, David said quietly. It's about knowing when to use it and when to hold back. Real strength is restraint. James never understood that. No, David agreed. He didn't. They pulled up to her building, this time Rachel didn't hesitate. Come up. I'll make tea. I don't want to be alone just yet. Of course. Her apartment was small, but perfectly designed, every inch maximized, every detail thoughtful. David looked around with genuine appreciation. You designed this? It's my sanctuary, Rachel said, putting the kettle on. After the divorce, I needed a space that was entirely mine. It's perfect, David said simply. It's you. They sat on her small couch, drinking tea, the tension from the confrontation slowly easing. Thank you, Rachel said, for handling James, for not making a scene. You don't need to thank me for basic decency, David said. In my experience, basic decency isn't that common, Rachel replied. David set down his tea, turning to face her fully. Rachel, can I ask you something? Of course. What do you want? From this? From us? I know we said slow, and I'm fine with that. But I need to know, and is this just friendship for you? Because for me... Rachel kissed him. It was impulsive, like grabbing his hand had been, but this time it wasn't about fear. It was about want, about choosing something good. David's hand came up to cup her cheek, gentle and sure. When they broke apart, both were breathing unsteadily. That was... not slow, Rachel finished, blushing. I was going to say perfect, David said, but yes, also not slow. I'm scared, Rachel admitted. I trusted James, and I don't know if I can trust my judgment anymore. Then trust mine, David suggested. I'm falling for you, Rachel Mitchell. Have been since you grabbed my hand and asked me to pretend. Maybe before that, when I watched you across the gala, so vibrant and alive. You don't have to fall with me. But know that I'll catch you if you do. Rachel felt tears slide down her cheeks. You barely know me. I know you're brave enough to leave a bad marriage, strong enough to build a new life, kind enough to worry about inconveniencing a stranger, talented enough to create beauty from empty spaces. He wiped her tears gently. What else do I need to know? That I'm messy, Rachel said, that I have trust issues and control issues, and probably need therapy. I'm in therapy, David said easily. Have been since Lisa died. It helps. I could give you my therapist's number if you want. Rachel laughed wetly. You're too perfect. There has to be a catch. I work too much, David offered. I can't cook. I'm overly protective of people I care about. I still cry sometimes when I hear Lisa's favorite song. Rachel kissed him again, stopping his litany of flaws. Okay, we're both imperfect. Maybe that's perfect. Maybe it is, David agreed. If this story is touching your heart, please remember to subscribe and share your thoughts below. Sometimes love comes when we're brave enough to trust again. Over the next month, they grew closer. David was true to his word. He didn't push, didn't rush, but he was there, steady, solid, sure. He sent flowers to her office with notes that made her smile. He showed up with soup when she was sick. He listened to her rant about difficult clients and celebrated her wins. You know what you're doing, right? Her friend Stephanie said over wine one night. You're falling in love. I can't be, Rachel protested. It's too soon. I just got divorced. Hearts don't follow timelines, Stephanie pointed out, and David sounds wonderful. He is, Rachel admitted. That's what scares me. James was wonderful too at first. Was he, though? Stephanie challenged. Really think about it. Were there signs you ignored? Rachel thought back. The way James had insisted on ordering for her at restaurants, how he'd slowly isolated her from friends, the criticism disguised as concern. Yes, she admitted. There were signs. I wanted to be loved so badly I ignored them. And David, any red flags? Rachel considered. David, who asked her opinion and listened, who encouraged her friendships, who built her up instead of tearing her down. No, she said softly. No red flags. Just green lights everywhere. Then maybe, Stephanie said gently, it's time to go. The next evening, David cooked for her, or attempted to. The pasta was overcooked and the sauce was from a jar, but he'd tried. They ate on his balcony, the Seattle skyline glittering before them. "This is terrible," David said, poking at his mushy spaghetti. "It's perfect," Rachel countered, and meant it. "You're biased," David accused with a smile. "Maybe," Rachel agreed. "David, can I tell you something?" "Always." "I think I'm falling in love with you," she said in a rush. "Which terrifies me because the last time I fell in love it nearly destroyed me. But you're nothing like James and I—" David set down his fork, taking her hands. "Rachel, breathe." She did, shakily. "I'm already there," he said simply. "I've been in love with you for weeks. Maybe since that first coffee date when you quoted The Princess Bride and laughed like you'd forgotten how." "David!" "You don't have to say it back," he interrupted gently. "You don't have to feel it back. I just want you to know where I stand. I love you, Rachel. All of you. The scared parts and the brave parts and everything in between." Rachel felt something crack open inside her chest. The walls she'd built so carefully after James, the protection she'd wrapped around her heart, all of it crumbling under David's patient, steady love. "I love you too," she whispered. "I'm terrified, but I love you." David pulled her into his arms, holding her as she cried, tears of fear and joy and release all mixed together. "We'll figure it out," he murmured against her hair. "Together." That night, Rachel stayed. They made love slowly, carefully, David treating her like something precious. Afterward, lying in his arms, Rachel felt something she hadn't in years. Safe. "Move in with me," David said suddenly in the darkness. "What?" "Move in with me," he repeated. "Or I'll move in with you. Or we'll find somewhere new together. I don't care. I want to wake up with you. Every day." "David, we've only been together 2 months. I knew I wanted to marry Lisa after 3 weeks," David said. "When you know, you know, and I know, Rachel. But if you need more time—" "Yes," Rachel interrupted. "Yes, you need more time." "Yes, I'll move in with you," Rachel clarified, heart racing. "But David, I need to go slow on the rest. Marriage, I mean, Hey," David soothed. "I'm not proposing. I'm just saying I know where this is heading for me. We'll go at your pace. Always." Rachel thought about her little apartment, her sanctuary, but lying here in David's arms, she realized home wasn't a place anymore. It was a person. "Okay," she said, "let's do it." The move was easier than expected. David insisted on hiring movers, wouldn't let her lift anything heavy. Her furniture looked perfect mixed with his, her design eye making his condo feel warmer, more lived in. "It looks like a home now," David said, watching her arrange throw pillows. "It was always a home," Rachel corrected. "Now it's our home." James, thankfully, had stayed away since the confrontation. David's lawyer had sent a formal cease and desist, and the threat to his reputation seemed to have worked. They settled into domestic life with surprising ease. David couldn't cook, but he made excellent coffee. Rachel cooked, but hated doing dishes. David happily took over cleanup. They fit together like puzzle pieces, complementary and complete. "I have a work thing next week," David mentioned one evening. "Annual charity gala for the company. Would you come with me?" Rachel tensed. "Another gala?" "We can skip it," David said immediately. "I just thought new memories, you know. But if you're not comfortable—" "No," Rachel said firmly. "No, I want to go. I won't let one bad night ruin all galas forever." "You sure?" "I'm sure. Besides," she smiled, "this time I'll actually have a boyfriend to hold hands with." The night of the gala, Rachel wore red. A bold choice, but she felt bold. David's eyes went wide when she emerged from the bedroom. "You look... wow." "Wow yourself," Rachel said, adjusting his bow tie. "You clean up nice, Mr. Sterling." "Ready for this?" he asked, offering his arm. "With you?" "I'm ready for anything." The gala was at the same hotel, but everything felt different. This time Rachel walked in on David's arm, confident and calm. This time, when people looked, it was with admiration, not fear. "David!" a woman approached, elegant in navy blue. "So good to see you. And you must be Rachel. David's told us so much about you. All good, I hope, Rachel said, shaking hands. All wonderful, the woman assured her. I'm Patricia, David's CFO. He's been insufferably happy lately. Now I see why. As the evening progressed, Rachel met David's colleagues, his friends, his world. Everyone was warm, welcoming, genuine, so different from the superficial crowd James had cultivated. Dance with me, David requested as the band started playing. On the dance floor in the same ballroom where she'd grabbed his hand in desperation, Rachel swayed in David's arms with joy. Thank you, she said. For what? For being you, for seeing me, for loving me back to life. David spun her gently, then pulled her close. Thank you for being brave enough to grab my hand. Best thing that ever happened to me. Second best, Rachel corrected, knowing Lisa would always hold a special place. No, David said firmly. Best. Lisa would agree. She'd be thrilled I found you. She always said I'd need someone strong enough to handle me. And do I? Handle you? You do more than that, David said. You make me want to be better, to live fuller, to love harder. Rachel kissed him there on the dance floor, not caring who saw. Let them look. Let them see a woman who'd survived hell and chosen heaven. Let them see love winning. 6 months later, on a hiking trail overlooking Puget Sound, David got down on one knee. I know you wanted slow, he said, pulling out a ring. But Rachel, I've loved you for 8 months, lived with you for 6, and I want to wake up next to you for the next 60 years. You grabbed my hand once and changed my life. Now I'm asking you to hold it forever. Will you marry me? Rachel looked at this man who'd shown her what real love looked like. Patient love. Protective but not possessive. Strong but gentle. Everything James had pretended to be but never was. Yes, she said, tears streaming. Yes, David. Always yes. He slipped the ring on her finger. Not huge or flashy, but perfect. Like him. Like them. I love you, he said, standing to kiss her. I love you too, Rachel replied. Thank you for waiting for me to be ready. I would have waited forever, David said simply. You're worth it. They married a year later in a small ceremony in the mountains. Rachel's dress was simple, elegant, her smile radiant. David cried when she walked down the aisle, not caring who saw. You know, Rachel said during their first dance, I never thanked James. Thanked him? David looked confused. If he hadn't been at that gala, I never would have grabbed your hand, Rachel explained. His worst moment led to my best decision. Then I guess I owe him a thank you too, David agreed. But I'm still glad the restraining order is permanent, Rachel laughed. Me too. Though I don't think he'll bother us again. Last I heard, he'd moved to California. Good riddance, David said, spinning her. Now, Mrs. Sterling, tell me, how does it feel to be married to boring business stuff? Perfect, Rachel said. Absolutely perfect. 2 years later, Rachel stood in the nursery she'd designed, watching David rock their daughter to sleep. Emma Lisa Sterling named for both their pasts while representing their future. She's finally out, David whispered, carefully placing Emma in her crib. You're good at that, Rachel observed. I had a good teacher, David said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. You. They stood watching their daughter sleep, this little miracle they'd created together. Do you ever think about how different life could have been? Rachel asked quietly. No, David said firmly. This is the life we were meant to have. Every struggle, every pain, every moment led us here. I wouldn't change a thing. Rachel turned in his arms. Even the beginning, the fear and the panic. Especially the beginning, David said. You were so brave that night, reaching out for help. And every day since you've been brave in therapy, in love, in building this life with me. We built it together, Rachel corrected. Yes, David agreed. We did. From the crib, Emma made a small sound, and both parents held their breath. But she settled back into sleep, peaceful and safe. Come on, David whispered. Let her sleep. I'll make you that decaf vanilla latte you've been craving. You know me so well, Rachel smiled. I should, David said, leading her from the nursery. "You're my wife, my best friend, my everything." In the kitchen of their home, not his condo or her apartment, but the house they'd chosen together, David made coffee while Rachel sat at the island watching him with love. Her phone buzzed, a text from a client confirming tomorrow's meeting. Rachel's design business had exploded in the past 2 years, her confidence growing alongside her reputation. David had been her biggest cheerleader, even converting one of their spare rooms into her home office. "Busy day tomorrow?" he asked, noting her phone. "The Henderson project," Rachel confirmed, "but I'll be home by 6. Family dinner, remember?" "How could I forget? Emma's first solid foods." David grinned. "I've got the camera ready." "She's going to make such a mess," Rachel laughed. "That's what babies do," David said, handing her the latte. "Make messes and make life beautiful." "Speaking of messes," Rachel said carefully, "how would you feel about another one?" David paused. "Another mess?" "Another baby," Rachel clarified, watching his face. David's eyes widened. "Are you—" "About 6 weeks," Rachel confirmed. "I found out this morning." David set down his coffee, crossed to her in 2 strides, and kissed her deeply. "Really?" "Really," Rachel laughed against his lips. "You happy?" "Ecstatic," David said. "Another baby, another piece of us in the world." "How are you feeling?" "Good, scared, excited. The usual mix," Rachel said. "We make beautiful babies," David said, his hand going to her still flat stomach. "Emma's going to be a great big sister." "She's too young to understand yet," Rachel pointed out. "We'll teach her," David said confidently, "like we've figured out everything else. Together." Rachel thought about their journey. From that panicked hand grab to this moment, married, parents expecting again. It hadn't been easy. Therapy had helped, both individual and couples, learning to trust again, to be vulnerable, to believe in forever. But they'd done it, built a love strong enough to weather any storm. "I love you," she said simply. "I love you too," David replied. "Both of you. All of you. Forever. Even when I'm huge and hormonal?" "Especially then," David grinned. "You were beautiful pregnant with Emma, glowing." "I was sweating," Rachel corrected. "Glowing," David insisted. They heard Emma stir through the baby monitor, little sounds that meant she'd be fully awake soon. "I'll get her," David offered. "We'll both go," Rachel decided. Hand in hand, they walked to their daughter's room. Emma was sitting up in her crib, hair wild from sleep, face breaking into a huge grin when she saw them. "Mama! Dada!" "Good morning, sunshine," David said, lifting her out. Emma immediately reached for Rachel too, wanting both parents. They settled into the rocking chair together, their daughter between them, a perfect moment in their imperfect, beautiful life. "You know what I just realized," Rachel said softly. "What's that?" "We're living our happily ever after." "No," David corrected, kissing her temple. "We're living our happily ever now. After implies an ending. This is just the beginning." Emma babbled agreement, patting both their faces with chubby hands. Her parents laughed, the sound filling their home with joy. Outside, Seattle was waking up, but inside the Sterling house, a family that had found each other through fear and courage, through trust and love, was already wide awake to all the possibilities the day might bring. Rachel thought about that scared woman at the gala 3 years ago, grabbing a stranger's hand in desperation. She wished she could tell her, "Hold on tight. He's going to catch you. And you're going to fly." But maybe, somehow, that woman had known. Maybe that's why she'd reached out in the first place. Not just running from something, but running toward everything she'd ever wanted. "Breakfast?" David asked, bringing her back to the present. "Pancakes," Emma said clearly, her newest word. "Pancakes it is," Rachel agreed, "but Daddy's cooking, so they might be interesting." "Hey," David protested, "I've gotten better." "You have," Rachel conceded, "at many things." "Yeah?" David's eyes heated. "Later," Rachel promised with a smile. After pancakes and baby food and probably a bath because someone's going to get syrup everywhere. Me, Emma announced cheerfully. Yes, you, David agreed, booping her nose. Our little messmaker. As they headed to the kitchen, Rachel's phone buzzed again. This time it was Stephanie. Brunch Sunday? I want to hear everything about the Henderson project. Rachel typed back one-handed. Yes, fair warning. I have news. 3 dots appeared immediately. Pregnant? Maybe, Rachel sent back with a smiley face. I knew it. You're glowing in your Instagram photos, Rachel laughed, drawing David's attention. Stephanie, she explained. She guessed about the baby. She's good, David said, settling Emma in her high chair. Took me by complete surprise. That's because you see me every day, Rachel pointed out. The changes are gradual. I see you, David said seriously. Every day I see you, and every day you're more beautiful than the last. Smooth talker, Rachel accused, but she was blushing. Truth teller, David corrected. Now who wants to help Daddy make pancakes? Me, Emma clapped, watching David lift their daughter to help. Mostly she'd bang a spoon and taste batter. Rachel felt that familiar wave of gratitude wash over her. This life, this love, this family, none of it had come easy. But the best things rarely did. Her phone rang. The Henderson project, probably. Rachel almost ignored it, then saw it was an unknown number. Usually she'd let it go to voicemail, but something made her answer. Hello? Rachel, this is Patricia from David's office. I'm sorry to call so early, but I have a woman here who's quite upset. She says she knows you. Her name is Melissa. Rachel's blood chilled. Melissa was James's new wife. She'd heard through the grapevine that he'd remarried quickly after moving to California. What's wrong? Rachel asked, already knowing. She has some bruises, Patricia said carefully. She said you'd understand, that you'd know what to do. Rachel closed her eyes. Of course. James hadn't changed. He'd just found a new victim. Put her on, Rachel said. Rachel. Melissa's voice was shaky, scared. I'm sorry to bother you. I didn't know who else to call. James. He's getting worse, and I remembered Patricia mentioning you worked with David Sterling now, and I thought, you did the right thing, Rachel said firmly. Where is James now? Business trip. He doesn't know I left. I can't go back, but I don't know what to do. Rachel looked at David, who'd noticed her tension. She mouthed, James, and saw his expression harden. You're safe now, Rachel told Melissa. Stay with Patricia. I'm coming. I'm sorry, Melissa said, crying now. I know you must hate me. I believed all his lies about you. I don't hate you, Rachel interrupted. I understand. Just stay there. I'll be there in 30 minutes. She hung up, turning to David. James's new wife. She's at your office with Patricia. She's hurt and scared. I'll come with you, David said immediately. No, stay with Emma. I need to do this. Rachel was already grabbing her keys. But can you call your lawyer? She's going to need help. Of course. David caught her hand. Rachel, you're amazing, you know that. After everything he did to you, you're still willing to help. Because someone should have helped me, Rachel said simply. Maybe someone tried and I wasn't ready to hear it. But she's ready now, and I won't let her face this alone. I love you, David said. Be careful. I will. I love you too. Rachel drove to David's office building, memories flooding back. But this time she wasn't running scared. This time she was the one offering a hand to grab. She found Melissa in Patricia's office, looking exactly like Rachel had felt 3 years ago. Scared, small, ashamed. The bruises on her arms were purple fresh. Thank you for coming, Melissa whispered. Of course, Rachel said, sitting beside her. Tell me what you need. For the next hour, Rachel listened, advised, comforted. She gave Melissa her therapist's number, her lawyer's number, the number for a women's shelter if she needed it. Stay with friends, Rachel advised. Document everything. Don't go back alone, not even for your things. How did you do it? Melissa asked. How did you get free? One day at a time, Rachel said honestly. With help, with support, with the belief that I deserved better. You deserve better too, Melissa. He said no one would believe me, that everyone would take his side like they did with you. He lied, Rachel said firmly, just like he lied about everything else. You're believable. You're strong. You're going to get through this. By the time Rachel left, Melissa had a plan, support and hope. Patricia promised to stay with her until her sister arrived from Portland. Rachel sat in her car for a moment, processing. 3 years ago, she'd been Melissa, scared and alone. Now she was married to a man who truly loved her, pregnant with their second child, successful in her career, happy in her life. The journey from there to here hadn't been straight or easy, but it had been worth it. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. "How did it go? Emma and I are making you breakfast." "Well, attempting to." Rachel smiled, texting back, "Good. She's going to be okay. Home soon." "We love you," came the immediate response. "Drive safe." Rachel started the car, heading home to her family. As she drove, she thought about second chances, about reaching out for help, about hands that catch you when you're falling. She'd grabbed David's hand in a moment of desperate fear. He'd held on and never let go. Together, they'd built something beautiful from the ashes of their separate pains. If you've been touched by this story of love and second chances, please subscribe and share. Remember, it's never too late to reach for help, to choose love, to build the life you deserve. Sometimes the hand you grab in desperation becomes the one you hold forever. Back home, Rachel found David and Emma covered in flour, the kitchen a disaster, and a plate of surprisingly decent pancakes waiting for her. "Mama!" Emma shrieked happily, reaching flour-covered hands toward her. "Hi, baby," Rachel said, not caring about her clothes as she accepted the messy hug. "How's Melissa?" David asked quietly. "She'll be okay," Rachel said. "She's strong, she just needed someone to remind her of that." "Like someone reminded you?" "Like you reminded me," Rachel corrected, kissing him. "Every day you remind me that I'm worthy of love." "Because you are," David said simply. "You always were, even before me." "I know that now," Rachel said, "but sometimes we need someone else to believe it first, until we can believe it ourselves." Emma, impatient with the serious talk, shoved a piece of pancake at Rachel. "Eat." "Bossy little thing," Rachel laughed, accepting the offering. "Wonder where she gets that from," David teased. "Definitely you," Rachel said. "Me? You're the one who rearranged our entire living room 3 times. It needed better flow. It was perfect every time," David said. "Just like you." "Flatterer," Rachel accused. "Truth-teller," David maintained. "Now, who wants to hear about their new brother or sister?" "Me," Emma said, though she clearly had no idea what he meant. As David began explaining in toddler terms about the baby growing in Mommy's belly, Rachel watched her family with a full heart. This morning had reminded her how far she'd come, but also how grateful she was for the journey. Every step had led her here, to this kitchen, this family, this love. Even the painful parts had shaped her into someone strong enough to help others, wise enough to recognize real love, brave enough to accept it. "So, Emma," David was saying seriously, "you're going to be a big sister. That means you get to help take care of the baby." "Help," Emma agreed enthusiastically. "And teach them important things," David continued, "like how to make messes." "David," Rachel protested. "And how to laugh," he added. "And how to love. All the important stuff." "Love," Emma repeated, clapping. "That's right, baby girl," Rachel said, pulling both of them close. "Love is the most important thing." Outside, the Seattle morning was grey and drizzly, typical for the season. But inside the Sterling house, sunshine lived in every corner, in Emma's laughter, in David's smile, in the new life growing inside Rachel, in the love that had saved them all. 3 years ago, Rachel had grabbed a stranger's hand to escape her past. Today, she held that same hand as they built their future. Tomorrow she'd hold it again, and the day after, and every day for the rest of their lives. Because sometimes the hand you grab in your darkest moment becomes the one that leads you into the light. And sometimes that's exactly how love is supposed to happen. The years passed in a beautiful blur. Emma grew into a confident, creative little girl who inherited her mother's eye for design and her father's protective nature. Her little brother, Thomas David Sterling, arrived on a rainy April morning, completing their family in ways they hadn't imagined possible. Rachel's design business flourished, eventually expanding into a full firm with 3 employees. She specialized in creating healing spaces, homes for women starting over, offices for therapists, sanctuaries for those rebuilding their lives. Her own story, though she rarely shared it directly, informed every choice she made. David's company continued to grow, but he never let work consume him the way it might have before. Every evening at 6 he was home. Every weekend was family time. Every milestone was celebrated, every moment treasured. "Daddy, tell us the story again," 6-year-old Emma requested one evening, curled up on the couch with 3-year-old Thomas. "Which story, sweetheart?" David asked, though he knew. "How you met Mommy," Thomas chimed in, with a hand grabbing. Rachel smiled from the doorway, watching her family. They'd created a sanitized version for the kids. Mommy was scared at a party and grabbed Daddy's hand, and they fell in love. The darker details would come later, when they were old enough to understand. "Well," David began, pulling both kids closer, "Mommy was at this big fancy party." "Was she wearing a pretty dress?" Emma interrupted. "The prettiest," David confirmed, "and I was sitting all alone, feeling sad." "Why were you sad, Daddy?" Thomas asked, though he'd heard this story dozens of times. "Because I was lonely," David said simply. "I was waiting for someone special, but I didn't know it yet." "And then Mommy grabbed your hand," Emma exclaimed. "And then Mommy grabbed my hand," David agreed, his eyes finding Rachel's across the room, "and everything changed." "Because of true love," Emma said with satisfaction. "Because of true love," David confirmed. Later, after the kids were in bed, Rachel and David sat on their deck, watching the stars. It was their ritual, stolen moments of quiet in their beautifully chaotic life. "Melissa called today," Rachel said. "She's getting married again." "Good for her," David said sincerely. "She deserves happiness." Melissa had divorced James 2 years ago, with Rachel's support throughout the process. James had fought it, of course, but Patricia's recordings and Rachel's testimony had been damning. Last they'd heard, he'd left Seattle entirely, his reputation in ruins. "She wanted to thank me again," Rachel continued. "Said I saved her life." "You did," David said simply. "We did," Rachel corrected. "Your lawyer, your support, your patience while I helped her through it." "That's what love does," David said, pulling her closer. "It expands. It makes us bigger than ourselves." Rachel thought about that. How love had expanded her life in ways she'd never imagined. From a scared woman grabbing a stranger's hand to a wife, mother, successful businesswoman, and advocate for others escaping abuse. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been at that gala?" David asked. "No," Rachel said firmly. "We would have found each other somehow. I believe that now. Some things are meant to be." "Fate." "Choice," Rachel corrected. "You chose to help a stranger. I chose to trust you. We chose to build this life together. Every day we choose each other. And I'd choose you again," David said. "In every lifetime, in every universe. I'd always choose you." "Even if I grabbed your hand at a grocery store instead of a gala?" Rachel teased. "Especially then," David grinned. "Very romantic, the produce section." They laughed, the sound carrying on the night air. Inside, their children slept safely. Around them, their home stood strong, a testament to love rebuilt from ashes. "I have something for you," David said suddenly, pulling out a small wrapped box. "It's not my birthday," Rachel protested. "Open it," David insisted. Inside was a delicate charm bracelet with 2 charms, a hand and a heart intertwined. "David," Rachel breathed. "I had it made," he explained, "to remember, not the fear or the pain, but the moment everything began, the moment you reached out and I reached back." Rachel kissed him, pouring 8 years of love into the connection. "It's perfect." "There's room for more charms," David pointed out, "for more memories, more moments." "More children?" Rachel teased. Don't tempt me, David warned with a grin. They sat in comfortable silence, Rachel admiring her bracelet. It caught the light, throwing tiny rainbows. Beauty from simple things, just like their life. You know what I realized today, Rachel said. Emma's almost the age I was when I met James. It terrifies me thinking of her ever going through what I did. She won't, David said firmly. She's growing up seeing real love. She knows what respect looks like, what partnership means. We're breaking the cycle, Rachel. Promise? I promise. Our children will never settle for less than they deserve, because they're seeing what real love looks like every day. It was true. Emma already showed signs of her mother's strength and her father's steadiness. Thomas was gentle and protective, defending smaller kids at preschool. They were raising children who would know their worth. Besides, David added, any future partner will have to get past me first. David Sterling, are you going to be one of those fathers? Absolutely, David said without shame. I've seen what's out there. Our kids deserve the best. They'll find it, Rachel said confidently, just like we found each other. A cry came through the baby monitor. Thomas, probably having a bad dream. David started to get up, but Rachel stopped him. I've got it, she said. You got Emma earlier. Partnership, David said with a smile. Always, Rachel agreed. She found Thomas sitting up in his toddler bed, clutching his stuffed elephant. Bad dream, baby? Rachel asked, gathering him close. Monsters, Thomas mumbled against her shoulder. No monsters here, Rachel assured him. Daddy keeps them all away. And you, Mommy, Thomas said. You're brave too. Rachel's heart squeezed. Even at 3, her son saw her strength. The woman who'd once felt weak and worthless was raising children who saw her as brave. We're all brave in this family, she told him. Even when we're scared, we're brave. Like when Emma went on the big slide? Exactly like that, Rachel agreed. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing things even when you're scared. Like grabbing hands? Thomas asked sleepily. Rachel smiled. Even the simplified version of their story had stuck with him. Yes, baby, like grabbing hands. She rocked him until he fell back asleep, then returned to find David had moved inside, working on his laptop at the kitchen table. Urgent email? She asked. Planning, David corrected, turning the screen toward her. I was thinking, 10th anniversary next year. We should do something special. David, that's 14 months away. I like to be prepared, he said. I was thinking Hawaii. Renew our vows on the beach. The kids would love it. You want to renew our vows? I want to marry you again, David said simply. I want to promise you forever in front of our children. I want them to see that love isn't just something that happens once. It's something we choose again and again. Rachel felt tears prick her eyes. You really are perfect, you know that? Far from it, David disagreed. But I'm perfect for you, just like you're perfect for me. Hawaii sounds wonderful, Rachel said. But you know what? I'd marry you again anywhere. In our backyard, in a courthouse, in that hotel ballroom where we met. Now there's an idea, David mused. Full circle. Our whole life is full circle, Rachel pointed out. Helping Melissa, mentoring other women starting over, raising kids who know their worth. Everything painful became something purposeful. You did that, David said. You took your pain and transformed it into power. We did that, Rachel corrected. I couldn't have done any of it without you. Sure you could have, David disagreed. You're the strongest person I know. I just gave you a safe place to remember that. They migrated to their bedroom, moving through their nighttime routine with the ease of years together. Rachel watched David in the bathroom mirror. Older now, silver threading through his hair, laugh lines deeper. He was even more handsome than the night they'd met. Stop staring at me, David said without turning around. Never, Rachel replied. I grabbed your hand, that means I get to stare at you forever. It's in the fine print. I must have missed that clause, David teased, turning to wrap his arms around her. What else is in this fine print? Pancakes on Sundays, Rachel said. Bedtime stories, dancing in the kitchen, growing old together. I like this contract, David murmured, kissing her neck. Where do I sign? You already did, Rachel reminded him. 8 years ago, when you said I do. Best decision I ever made, David said, after letting you grab my hand. They made love slowly, tenderly, with the deep intimacy of years together. Afterward, lying tangled together, Rachel traced patterns on David's chest. I love you, she said, words she never tired of saying. I love you too, David replied, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Forever. And ever, Rachel added, their old promise. As sleep claimed them, Rachel's last thought was of gratitude for David, for their children, for the life they'd built, but mostly for that moment of desperate courage 8 years ago when she'd reached out for help and found everything she'd ever needed. The next morning brought the usual chaos: breakfast negotiations, lost shoes, Thomas insisting on wearing his Superman cape to preschool. Rachel moved through it all with practiced ease, David beside her as always. Mummy, can Sophia come for a playdate? Emma asked. Of course, sweetie, I'll text her mum. And can we make cookies? If you help clean up after, Rachel negotiated. Deal. Emma ran off to find her backpack. She's going to be a CEO someday, David observed, already negotiating like a pro. Or a designer, Rachel said. Did you see how she rearranged her room again? I did. It actually looks better, David admitted. She has your eye. And your determination, Rachel added. They got the kids off to school, then David to work. Rachel had client meetings all morning, but she took a moment in her car to just breathe, to appreciate. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Rachel. Patricia gave me your number. My name is Caroline. I think I need help. Another woman ready to break free. Another hand reaching out in the darkness. Rachel typed back, Hi, Caroline. You're brave for reaching out. When can we meet? As she drove to her office, Rachel thought about cycles, of pain, of healing, of love. She'd grabbed David's hand to escape her past. Now she offered her hand to others making the same journey. That evening, as their family gathered for dinner, Emma chattering about school, Thomas showing off a drawing, David asking about everyone's day, Rachel felt the profound rightness of their life. Mommy, why are you smiling? Emma asked. Because I'm happy, Rachel said simply. Because of us? Thomas asked hopefully. Because of us, Rachel confirmed. Because of all of this. Even my mess. Thomas gestured to the spaghetti sauce on his shirt. Especially your mess, Rachel laughed. After dinner, they all piled onto the couch for movie night. Emma picked, as it was her turn, choosing, inevitably, a princess movie. Look, she pointed at the screen. The princess is grabbing the prince's hand. Just like Mommy and Daddy, Thomas added. Just like Mommy and Daddy, David agreed, squeezing Rachel's hand. As the movie played and their children snuggled between them, Rachel reflected on fairy tales and real life. Her story had been no fairy tale. It had been better, messier, harder, more painful, but ultimately more beautiful because it was real. She'd been no princess waiting for rescue. She'd been a woman finding her strength. David had been no prince on a white horse. He'd been a partner steady and true. Their love hadn't been instant or easy. It had been built moment by moment, choice by choice, hand in hand. I love you, she whispered to David over the children's heads. I love you too, he whispered back. Thank you. For what? For grabbing my hand, David said. For holding on, for never letting go. Thank you for being worth holding on to, Rachel replied. Emma shushed them. It's the best part. They turned back to the movie, but Rachel wasn't watching the screen. She was watching her family. David absently playing with Emma's hair, Thomas fighting sleep against her shoulder, all of them together and safe and loved. 8 years ago, she'd grabbed a stranger's hand in a moment of desperate fear. Tonight, she held her husband's hand in perfect peace. Tomorrow, she'd hold it again, and every day after that. Because sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the smallest gestures, a reached hand, a offered shelter, a choice to trust. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that grabbed hand becomes the one you hold forever, building a life and a love that transforms not just two people, but everyone they touch. As the movie ended and they carried sleepy children to bed, Rachel sent up a silent thank you to the universe, to fate, to whatever force had put David Sterling at that bar on that particular night. But mostly she thanked herself, the scared, desperate woman who'd been brave enough to reach out. And she thanked David, the grieving man who'd been kind enough to reach back. Together, they'd written a love story worth telling, worth living, worth passing on to their children and their children's children. A story that began with fear, but was built on courage. A story that started with grabbing, but grew through choosing. A story of two broken people who helped each other heal, and in healing, found forever. The end wasn't really an end at all. It was a continuation of all the beautiful, ordinary, extraordinary days that make a life. Days full of pancakes and tantrums, of board meetings and bedtime stories, of challenges faced together and joys shared completely. Days of choosing each other, again and again and again. Days of holding hands, not in desperation now, but in celebration. Days of love, expanding ever outward, touching everyone in its path. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey of unexpected love and second chances. If this story touched your heart, please remember to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever taken a leap of faith that changed your life? Sometimes the scariest moments lead to the most beautiful destinations. Remember, it's never too late to reach out for help, to choose love, to build the life you deserve. Until next time, keep believing in love's power to transform, heal, and create miracles. Because sometimes, the hand you grab in your darkest moment becomes the one that leads you home.